At the stroke of midnight today, the single biggest tax reform in the history of the nation will become a reality. Some are calling it India's tryst with GST, reminding many of us of August 14, 1947, at the stroke of midnight, when India's first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, addressed the nation. And that speech, a historic speech he delivered, called Tryst with Destiny. Well, it was thrill and happiness 70 years ago. 70 years down the line, as we are at the cusp of GST, there are probably mixed emotions: thrill, excitement, happiness, probably also a bit of trepidation. And uh, of course, we are a great democracy. We are not just the biggest democracy in the world, we are also a great democracy. And we'll surely finally get it all right. But as we count down the hours and minutes to the GST launch function at the Central Hall of Parliament tonight by President Pranab Mukherjee and Prime Minister Narendra Modi, we have with us a special guest, Rohan Shah, who reminisce about this journey. I wouldn't want to call him the father of GST in India, but surely he was one of the first persons to articulate the concept of GST in India. And I do remember that conversation as a young budding journalist almost 13 years ago in 2004. That's when I joined TV journalism. And I remember Rohan Bhai, we had a midterm budget in July 2004. And that was when I first heard him talk about the concept of GST and why it is important, for India to implement it. It's taken 13 years, Rohan Bhai. Probably would have tested your patience. I think in these 13 years, you would have felt many a times that GST is not going to be a reality in my lifetime. Another 20, 25 years, 30 years. But we have seen it. It's made it finally. I've always said that twists and turns in GST have been more than Abbas Mastan. But yet we are here finally, Rohan Bhai. What are the emotions you are feeling today?
No, the overwhelming emotion is, of course, that something which should rightly have been part of our economic framework is now rightfully going to be part of our economic framework. So I think there is at one level a huge excitement that GST is real, and the sense of excitement is slightly tempered by the factor that even though it's been so long in the making, uh, the situation is, as we kick it off, the first phase is likely to be a little tumultuous, a little chaotic. But if I had to sort of state just one emotion, I think it is excitement that even if this has been baked for the last 16 years, ultimately we do have a GST and we are on the threshold of a historic reform.
When you first made that case for GST, and now the government is making the same case, one market, one tax. Therefore, the huge economic benefits of being a one integrated market. See the structure of the GST that we are implementing. There is some criticism, valid criticism, that it doesn't take us any closer to one nation, one market, one tax. Would you buy that criticism? Do we still have some way to travel to get there?
You know, uh, Firstly, to me, what is important is the distance we have traveled. And I think it is immense, and for two reasons. One, although we sort of don't have a GST that people might sort of find ideal, we do have a GST. It's a workable GST, and I am of the very firm opinion that while we will have, as I said, a chaotic period for maybe 4 to 6 months, in retrospect, when we look back, let's say 7, 8 months hence, we will realize that we have the only sort of GST which might have worked in this country. The second thing, which to me is very important, is this whole situation in terms of how the GST Council has functioned. We hear terms like cooperative federalism, etc. But it truly has been a outstanding effort in terms of the areas covered, the progress made, but more importantly, the dignity of the dialogue between states and center. So, is it one nation, one market? Is it ideal? No, it is not. But we have a GST. We have a robust credit structure. Uh, duplication of taxes, even double taxes, will be subsumed, and the network of assessees who will pay tax. That universe will be unprecedented. So, to my mind, this may not be the ideal GST, but it is a GST of the type that will change the nation. And to my mind, again, one nation, one tax, we may not be in the ideal position, but I sincerely believe that we've taken a huge step towards that. And some of the anomalies will sort out over a period of time. So are we sort of at 100% ideal? No. But to my mind, you're certainly in a 90% plus category.
Yeah. Rohan bhai, what is the biggest positive that you see going for the current GST regime? Would you say possibly the GST Council, all the unanimous decisions? The biggest worry was always the political, the federal structure that we have in our country. Center state relations have been a bit touchy over the years, as we saw reflected in the entry tax judgment of the Supreme Court. So probably would you say the biggest positive going for the GST is the way the GST Council has functioned? And in the same breath, what would be your biggest concern about what could still derail the GST party in the next 12 months?
As I mentioned, definitely one of the big takeaways is how the GST Council has functioned. They've been purposeful, they've achieved a lot, they've done it with unanimity, and there has been a sense of camaraderie and a sense of ownership of the GST, both I would think within the consultative process of the GST Council, and even when each individual minister spoke outside the council meetings, they spoke as one body, which I think was outstanding. And the fact that the council will remain, I am hoping will not only ease out the next 6 quite difficult months of GST, but I'm hoping at some stage, if required, their footprint and their point of reference is even expanded to other issues where the state and center need to sit together. Uh, if we talk about what is the worry? The worry is, will this same sense of cooperative federalism remain? Or will we, over a period of time, given that states do have the ability and the empowerment to change rates, uh, to make certain changes in the law, will we see slowly a probably beginning as a matter of degrees, but then expanding to becoming quite significant, a situation where states become assertive and therefore have different rates or different provisions? That's a worry. Uh, Currently, maybe one may say the worry is unfounded, but if we see what happened to VAT, it went that journey. It started on a unified basis, and then there were variations over a period of time, and we just had almost state-led VAT. I have one further issue, which is when it comes to interpretation. And in the way the law has emerged, with notifications even coming through uh, within the last 24 hours, interpretation is going to be a key factor. And you now have on the same issue potentially 31 different sets of authorities who can interpret. And I am concerned that if these interpretations are divergent and if sometimes contradictory, then it will mean that the assessees have a very difficult time, because you will be treated in one manner in one state, and under a common law you'll still be treated differently elsewhere. So the concern really is that, can we sustain the same level of uniformity and cohesiveness into the future, both in terms of the legislative process, the rate process, but more importantly also in terms of the interpretative process?
Run by several opposition parties are boycotting the launch function, and one of the reasons we are not discussing the boycott, but one of the reasons, key reasons being given by them, is that it's being launched in a hurry. That the SMEs, traders, small businessmen are not ready. Let me flip that question a bit. Let me tweak it and ask you, what would be your advice to the SMEs, the small businesses, on what do they need to do. Even I was at a function organized by a good friend, a chartered accountant, for his clients yesterday. A lot of SME small clients, and the feeling one got was that they are still struggling to come to grips with this new animal called the GST. What would be your advice to them?
Yeah, and undoubtedly it is difficult for them because this is a whole system, the backbone of which is the factor of IT technology, and to the extent that many of the small and medium players don't even have computer access, or they are in towns where there is no Wi-Fi, there is in towns where electricity is erratic. Uh, it is difficult. They are also sort of grappling with the new law, and while people keep assuring them that it's extremely simple, some of them are finding specific difficulties. My advice to them really would be to, you know, say that three things are in a way an inherent insurance with the GST. Firstly, the rates for you and all of your competitors effectively is the same. It's a system where everybody will have to be part of a tax paying mechanism, so there's no arbitrage between non-taxpayers and taxpayers. There is a process which is challenging because you now have to do different things in terms of registration, your invoice, your returns. So that is more onerous. Having said which, the factor of the tax rates as they are, the factor of the assurance that there will be no penalties, the factor that ultimately the credit system is completely robust and all antecedent taxes are available as credit, I would say that yes, there will be inconvenience for the first 4 to 6 months, but the GST is good. Yesterday there was at some seminar where uh, somebody in Hindi was saying, what is your overwhelming sentiment? And I said, uh, the situation is you cannot be scared of the GST, but you need to be vigilant in the GST. You cannot approach it with fear, but you will have to approach it with an open mind because it is a change. It is not an easy change, but it is a desirable change. So you have no option. You need to get into it. Uh, the government is trying to be facilitative. So I would say just focus on the basic things. Get your registration done, get your invoice right, get your first return right, ensure that your CA and your finance or accounts guy understands the GST. Don't obsess with it. Don't be scared. Do the simple things properly, and the rest will fall in place.
You're in a way saying, try to keep it as far as possible business as usual.
Yeah.
Don't fret over it. I'll give you two comments, Rohan, by read out from two corporate tax heads. One, Mr. Akela Prakash Rao from Biocon. We asked them what are the three things that the corporates need to do for a smooth GST rollout tomorrow. So he said, one thing he says, the important thing the industry needs to take care for a smooth rollout would be preparedness of their ERP systems with clear understanding of the GST laws. He goes on to expand on that. Then he says exports is one other area which requires clarity as the industry is clueless how to do export under bond or LUT as there is no clarity on the jurisdictional officer for executing such bond or LUT. So these are the two areas he's mentioned. We also have a comment from Rajesh Shukla, who heads the indirect tax at Tata Motors, one of the biggest auto companies in India. Again, he mentions the first point as IT systems to be geared up to issue tax invoices, challans for supply dispatch. Um, he then says finalization of pricing, analyze the possible impact of subsuming of taxes and anti-profiteering measures on the business, recompute the prices, taking into account reduction in cost of productions on account of decrease in tax rate of base price reduction. And last point, he says for a smooth GST rollout, he says educate the employees and other stakeholders who own by. So these are a couple of comments that we've got from them. Anyone you
Yeah.
want to take? Anything?
I would tend to agree. Both the gentlemen have covered various facets, and they're all important facets. But I just go back, when you focused on the small medium. The small medium, as I said, just look at the simple things. You need to get your invoice right, and from that perspective, again, there's no form, but as long as Your invoice generates the information that the fields require. You're fine. Your situation is your registration process is quite easy, and your first return is what you'll need to focus on. It's like that child who sort of hits the first two rounds of pedals when they first learn to get onto a bike. uh, it might be slightly wobbly, but the moment that rhythm is set by doing the simple things, I think people will get into the flow much easier.
Great. And Rohan, before we wind up this special hangout, last two questions. 2 years from now, or 12 months or 24 months from now, Rohan bhai, what would we be talking about? Would we be talking about a possible litigation landscape? Will we be talking about a lot of changes to the law, to the rules that will happen because of the feedback? The government has promised that we will hear you, we will constantly monitor the feedback, and they will handhold. So can we expect a lot of changes to the law in the next 12 months? And finally, you think could there be a positive surprise? Right now the overwhelming sentiment is excitement, but also a lot of fear and trepidation, as I said in the beginning. Which one of the three would you
you know so if I was to sort of see this 2 years hence, I think the key issue 2 years hence probably will be the factor that how is the tax administration and tax interpretation going. If those are qualitative, if those are not in any manner unusual, then I think the GST would have settled in well, and we would, in a way, be enjoying the economic dividend of a good GST. Up until then, I think government, for the next 2 years, does need to show a sense of empathy and sensitivity. It can't be tax administration by revenue targets anymore. Your focus for the next 2 years has to be to get as much of industry to participate, to build their confidence into the GST, to make them feel that the GST is supportive of their business. And if government uses these next 2 years really to form confidence across the board in the GST process, in the GST as a framework of taxation, then I think we will achieve what we are hoping to achieve from this. If we get into a morass of revenue based administration, interpretation, revenue targets, all of that, then I think at the end of 2 years the position will be quite chaotic, and we will really be in a situation where litigation and interpretation will start entering into the mainstream. And I sincerely hope that doesn't happen. I sincerely hope that the next 2 years are just about an intelligent, comfortable migration into GST. Government must have patience with assessees, and if they do, then I think we will all benefit from the GST.
And my last question is on a lighter, to lighten the atmosphere a bit, Rohan, right? It's all about the mood today, sentiments. Rohan, bhai, if I were to ask you, uh, if GST were akin to a movie, which one would you compare GST to? Which movie does GST remind you of?
So if I was to see it from three perspectives. See, if you see it from the perspective of many consultants, I think the movie they would think of is Raz, because much is still unknown. If you see it from the perspective of anyone in MOF, they would say Darna Mana Hai. And if you see it from industry, I think they would say Darna Zaruri Hai. So maybe those are the three movies.
And I was so tempted that that considering that it's been a marathon journey, I was thinking of two series. One was the Harry Potter series, the second Lord of the Rings. Let's go with Harry Potter for the simple reason that he had the magic, that magic wand, and I'm sure the government too has the magic wand to ensure a smooth glitch-free GST rollout. We are all set, Ron, by just a few hours now to go for the GST launch function. I'm sure this is not the end of it. As Mr. Montek Singh Haluwalia, the former Deputy Chairman of the Planning Commission, has has written today in an opinion piece, quite persuasive, saying that he says the GST is seriously flawed as per experts, but this can be remedied provided we realize this is only a beginning. So I think that's the overwhelming sentiment that perfect cannot be the enemy of the good. That we may have an imperfect GST, but as Rohan Bhai said right in the beginning, we've traveled a long, long way, and no one gave it a chance. If many of us, even 1 year ago, if someone had asked us, we would have probably said GST is not going to happen. But 1 year hence, we are here at the cusp of history. Let's not undermine this
Yeah,
moment.
yeah.
It is a big moment. One can only hope that, as Rohan Bhai said, 12 months, 24 months down the line, we can all pat ourselves on the back and say that yes, we have managed to cross the Rubicon successfully. Rohan Bhai, is that fine?
And Arun, I just say this, that we're always quick to criticize government, but in this one situation, we should savor this moment. It is celebratory. But it's a midpoint, and it's a midpoint where if industry and government work together, the future could have some excellent prospects.
On that positive note, we will usher in the GST in a few hours from now. Be glued to Tax Sutra's special coverage of GST, the launch at midnight. Thank you.
Thank you.